Hey guys, it's Dave here from Whiskey Blooded. It's Friday, so it's not our normal day, and there's a reason for that. I've finally gotten around to the Friday Rye Day. Probably the worst, cheesiest name I've ever come up with, but at least at that point, I've gotten around to doing this. If you remember, one of my first videos, if you've been watching for a while, was a Scotch shootout. We put two Scotches against each other. So I figured today we'll just follow that same theme, and we'll do two ryes against each other. Reason for that, I don't have a lot of rye whiskeys. I don't like it as much as bourbon, but I do like it. So I don't have as many to put against each other, basically. I can't do one of these a week, so we'll probably stick to these once every month, once every other month. But these are two bottles that you've probably either tried yourself or you've seen and you've wondered whether or not you should buy them. This is Whistle Pig Straight Rye Whiskey, and this is High West Rendezvous Rye, which is a blend of straight rye whiskeys. And I decided today that we're going to pick two bottles that aren't from Kentucky. Now, rye, I would say overall, is something that's distilled in a lot of other places than just Kentucky. It's not like bourbon where if it doesn't have the Kentucky name on it, people don't want to buy it. Rye is distilled everywhere, a little easier and looser in that regards. But these two, I just figured we'll pick two companies that aren't from Kentucky. So Whistle Pig is Vermont, and High West, Utah. Wouldn't think of that place to distill, but High West is out in Utah where they're bottling this stuff at. And because it's a blend, I'm sure they could be pulling it from different areas too, but they're actually bottling it in Utah. So as far as the price range goes on both of these, you're going to have about 60, and I think this was about 40. And as far as the actual bottles themselves, I like both of them. They're you know, they're whiskey bottles. Neither of them I think are great, awesome bottles, but you know, if I had to choose one, I'd choose the Whistle Pig bottle over the High West. But they're both cool. So what about the stuff inside them? What does rye whiskey mean? I'm sure you know already, but just in case you don't, rye whiskey is going to be considered, the majority is going to be distilled with rye in the mash bill, more than 51%. So, is compared to bourbon, which is 51% corn. So what does rye in the mash bill mean? What does a lot of rye in the mash bill, or all rye, or majority of rye? What does that mean? Rye, think of eating rye bread. It's got more flavor than like a white bread would. So it's got more fruity notes, a little more spicy notes. It's just different than normal bread. So assume the same thing when we're looking at mash bills. Assume the same thing for ryes. They're going to have maybe more fruit, maybe more spice, a little more flavor than bourbon would. Not all bourbon and not all ryes are going to have more flavor, but you're going to get a lot more of those fruity, spicier tones. So once again, just think about rye bread. That's kind of what we're going to have here. So let's take a look at both bottles, and I will tell you, I have blank scorecards today. I haven't tried these bottles in 6 months and maybe 8 months. So we're going to score them as we taste them, which is something different than normal. But I've already poured some. Let's go into it. I didn't bring a... oh, I have one over here. Hang on. Okay. Let's look at the colors. So there we go for color. So we've got this one here. Dark... no, not dark. Like copper. Pretty normal color. That's the High West. And then the Whistle Pig. Almost the same color. Not much difference there. As for this, the tasting, and the nosing and the tasting, I'm going to start with the Whistle Pig, just because I know that's going to be an easier way to compare the two based on what I've had with these in the past. So let's start with the Whistle Pig. And the Whistle Pig has a great nose. And once again, like I've mentioned before, I do like rye. I just like bourbon more, so I'm going to be more critical. But it has a great nose. You know, it smells just like rye, which I would imagine, if I should have done a little more research before I did this, but I just wanted to get the video going and drink some whiskey. I believe this is 100% rye. So it's like I'm sticking my nose in a batch of rye bread, and I'm getting out some spice like black pepper spice, like like rye bread, like a little mustard almost. And then some fruity notes. Some fruity wood. Is that a thing? Fruity wood? It's in there if it's a thing. And maybe a little bit of mint. Definitely some mint now. And just at the very end, a little more of that spicy oak wood smell. So, you know, it smells great. You know, I really like the nose on this one. It's very lively. As for the taste, cheers. Woo! What is the proof on that one? 100 proof. You can taste it. Not that 100 is that high, but this just has a ton of flavor kicking you in the face. It has got some burn right up front and some flavor to it. And I like it. So I'm not saying that in a bad way, but this is different than drinking bourbon that's very sweet on the initial hit. Okay, so right up front on this one, I am getting a little bit of fruit, but then it just hits you, and it hits you with complex pepper and like that rye bread, like I said, it's hitting you with that. It's got a pretty big mouthfeel, not a big, but fairly big mouthfeel as it's moving around there. A little bit of apple, a little bit of mint, a tiny bit of tobacco, and then it finishes with a nice spice where I'm tasting more of those, like, you know, and I'm thinking rye in my brain, so I'm thinking like deli baking spices, but like baking spices. That's actually the best way. Not deli, just baking spices, like, you know, nutmeg, for example. So, good. I'm going to score this one right now. Like I said, I haven't scored them before. So let's do that. So for the straight rye, the Whistle Pig Straight Rye Whiskey from Vermont. Like I said, I don't like rye as much as bourbon, so don't pick on me about this rating. But I'm going to say 80 out of 100. So there's numero uno. 80 out of 100. Now, I'm going to cleanse my palate a little bit, move this out of the way. Longer video than normal today. One, it's Friday, so I don't have crap to do. Remember, there was a movie about that? So I'm just going to talk to you guys for a couple minutes. But number two, we're trying two different ones. And rating two different ones, too. The High West. Rendezvous Rye. You know, I'm going to be honest with you guys on this one. I did not have a great first taste of this, but it's sat for almost 8 months now. So this is non-chill filtered. We love non-chill filtered stuff. I don't understand why they chill filter anything. If everyone likes non-chill filtered, why the fuck do you guys still chill filter everything? Or a lot of stuff. So, but let's see. Let's see what I get this time. A lot of people love this stuff, by the way. A lot of people love this stuff. Less spice on the nose than the last one, but more fruit. It's like sticking your nose in a fruit tray. Yep, a lot less on the spice, just a little bit of oak, more apple, more pear. Some nutmeg, but we lose a lot of the spicy stuff. So I don't know the mash bill on this one either, sorry guys, but I'm guessing that this one has not, this isn't, I don't believe it's a 100% straight rye. It's probably got some bourbon. It's sweeter smelling. So it's got a little bit more of the bourbon notes in it, but like that corn, a little bit of oak, but mainly fruit, a tiny, tiny bit of underlying spice. But that's about it. But it's a good nose still, don't get me wrong. No, don't get me wrong at all. This is a good nose. I'm going to move this around a little bit. And then cheers, guys, to the Rendezvous Rye by High West. Okay. These are just so different that it's almost a bad review that I put them in the same video as one another, but sometimes it's good to try things that are way different. This High West is very fruity and smooth and nothing offensive, but it's very fruity. It's a lot of apple. It's got some bourbon notes to it, so I think there's some corn in there. Apple, pear, apples and pears. I mean, that's the main thing that I'm getting. Tiny burn at the end and just a slight taste of oak. But no spicy finish, no kick in the pants, no huge warming factor. You know, this is very good stuff, but very fruity. So when I think about this one, I think this is probably an awesome rye to mix with. Like a Manhattan, or if you like rye as your old-fashioned, which is technically the traditional way to drink it, an old-fashioned, because it would go great with like some sugar in it. Because think about sugar with fruits and pears and apples, and think about putting sugar with that. It just sounds good. But then think about putting sugar with like rye bread. You know, so this is like rye bread and this is like fruit. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. This stuff though, next Manhattan I make, I'm going to put some of this in it, and I'm going to see what I think about it. I bet you that this is one that I'm really going to like to mix some stuff with. As for the rating on this one, you know, I'm actually surprised, maybe because this is finished in bourbon, but I'm going to rate this one lower. Just because I can't drink it straight. I just sat there for 8 months. I'm just not going to like it. I'm going to say 73 out of 100. So 73 out of 100, not a bad bottle. It's a lot cheaper than the Whistle Pig 2. Like I said, I think you can get this for under 40, probably where you're at. And it's just something that I can't drink it straight. I can't do it. I had a little bit there. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can do it. It's just not as pleasurable as when I'm drinking my bourbons, or even this Whistle Pig is when it's straight. But it's great. I guarantee you it's great in a drink. Whereas this Whistle Pig would be awful in a drink. It's just too aged. It's too spicy and kick in the pants. Black peppers, white pepper, all those, you know, really strong notes. This stuff's better straight. Do I love either bottle? No, but once again, I'm not a rye drinker. I'm waiting to find one that I really, really do like. Actually, I do have one that I really, really do like. I'll do that in a couple weeks. I might have even reviewed it here in the past. But I have one or two that I really, really do like. But these are good bottles. I think that you should try either of them. I just don't think that these should be your first bottles of rye. I think you should buy a real cheap bottle of rye first. Look for something for like 20 bucks. And then say, do I even like rye? Do I like the way it tastes compared to bourbon or scotch if you're a scotch drinker? So you need to know if you like those flavors first. If you like that fruit, or maybe more of that rye bread, black pepper, white pepper, you know, spicy, mustardy kicks. Or once again, like with this one, more of the fruit in there if they're going to do that statement more. So try it out. Let me know what you think. Friday Rye Days will be basically when I'm bored. So I would love to say I can do them on a certain schedule, but just keep in tune for the regular weekly Wednesday videos, the Whiskey Wednesdays. Those will continue to be around every Wednesday. I'll do these, just like my videos where I show you how to make a couple drinks that I like cocktails that I like. These will be just throughout there. If you guys have any requests, though, and you want to see like a rye on Whiskey Wednesday, just let me know. I'll happily do it for you. Next week on Wednesday, so in a couple days here, Wednesday we're doing Makers 46. I've decided we are doing Makers 46. Everyone keeps asking, so we're going to do it. And then just keep an eye out for things in the future. Every time I get on here, I say I'm going to update the website. So I'm sure you guys like these videos first, but I'm trying to get all of my tasting notes put onto the website. It's just a lot of work for all my different things that I'm doing. So we'll see what happens with that. Thanks again for joining me today and my first Friday Rye Day. I know this was a long one, actually a really long one, so thanks for sticking it out. I hope you got some information that's helpful to you. I hope that you get out there and try a couple rye whiskeys, and I would love to hear what you guys think about rye compared to bourbon compared to Scotch. It's always fun to talk whiskey. So thanks, guys. I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me. My name is David Whiskey Blooded. See ya.